All right, everyone. तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं एंड कुछ टाइम से थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम आ रही थी स्ट्रीम करने में। आई डोंट नो व्हाई। तो मैं रिकॉर्ड भी कर रहा हूँ साथ में, अगर सडनली स्ट्रीम ऑफ हो जाए एंड फिर हम मतलब इससे लेक्चर की फॉर्म में ये कर सकते हैं, ठीक है, अपलोड कर सकते हैं अपनी प्लेलिस्ट में। एंड कंटिन्यू करने वाला अपनी बाइस्ट्रो ऐप को, देखते हैं इसमें क्या और चीज़ें करनी है। इस लिस्ट पे हम आज मेनली काम कर रहे होंगे, तो देखते हैं। एंड शुरू करने से पहले अगर किसी को कुछ क्वेश्चन तो आप बता सकते हो। एंड चैट को मैं यहीं पे साइड पे ओपन कर लेता हूँ, पॉपअ चैट। ओके, हेलो ब्रदर, कैसे हो? हेलो ब्रो, कुछ क्वेश्चन किसी को? ठीक हो, आप बताओ। बस मैं भी बढ़िया। ओके, तो यहाँ पे अपना बैक एंड फ्रंट एंड दोनों रन कर लेते हैं। एंड तो आप देखोगे यहाँ पे मेरा कल से हमने लॉगिन कर रखा है, तो अभी मतलब यहाँ पे हम लॉगिन रहेंगे डिफ़ॉल्ट, ठीक है। एंड यहाँ पे मेरा कार्ड सही तरीके से काम कर रहा है। उस लिस्ट को थोड़ा सा मैनेज करते हैं, बट उससे पहले कि हम मतलब इससे पहले कि हम कंटिन्यू करें, अगर किसी को कुछ पूछना हो तो आप पूछ सकते हो। एंड साथ में हमें थोड़ा रिडक्स को अच्छे से समझना होगा। मैंने रिडक्स को हल्का सा यूज़ करना देख लिया था, बट मेरा सॉल्व हो गया अब। या ब्रो, कीप इट अप। एंड यही बेस्ट चीज़ है एज अ डेवलपर, ठीक है। खुद से एरर सॉल्व किया करो, क्योंकि जितना ज़्यादा खुद से हम सॉल्व करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा पता चलेगा कि ठीक है, मतलब आगे हमारे लिए एक लेसन बन जाता है कि ठीक है आगे से क्या नहीं करना है एंड किस तरीके से चीज़ें होती है। कीप इट अप। तो चलिए, यहाँ पे हम एक चीज़ देख सकते हैं। किसी को कुछ पूछना हो तो आप पूछ सकते हो, रिडक्स ट्यूटोरियल, ठीक है। तो हम ये वाला ट्यूटोरियल देख रहे होंगे 1 hour 34 minute एंड ठीक है। तो मैं यहाँ से साउंड ऑन करता हूँ, डेस्कटॉप ऑडियो। एंड थोड़ा सा रिडक्स को अच्छे से समझ लेते हैं इस तरीके से यूज़ करना है। अगर यहाँ पे किसी को रिडक्स नहीं आता तो आप भी देख सकते हो। एंड थोड़ा सा उसमें मुझे आता है सेटअप किस तरीके से करना होता है, बट डीपली उसे प्रैक्टिस नहीं किया अच्छे से। एंड दैट्स वाई थोड़ा सा अगर देख लें तो बेटर रहेगा। तो मैं यहाँ पे क्या करता हूँ, यहाँ पे हमारी ऐप है, एक न्यू टर्मिनल ओपन करते हैं जहाँ पे मैं मेक डायरेक्टरी यहीं से सीडी कर लेता हूँ पहले। एंड यहाँ पे एक मेक डायरेक्टरी एंड हम इसे नेम देंगे रिडक्स, ठीक है, रिडक्स टूल किट। एंड सीडी, इसी के अंदर सीडी करते हैं, कंट्रोल सी, नो, कंट्रोल शिफ्ट सी एंड सीडी, कंट्रोल शिफ्ट वी, इंटर। अब इसके अंदर कोड करेंगे हम, ठीक है, जो भी कुछ प्रैक्टिस कर रहे होंगे अभी। एंड यहाँ पे हमारे लिए आएगा, अब इसे कट करते हैं। एंड यहाँ पे जितना हमने किया था इस सभी को गिटअप पे ऐड कर देते हैं, कंट्रोल से कंट्रोल है एंड गिट ऐड, गिट कमिट -m एंड इसे कहेंगे अपडेटेड कोड। वैसे फ्रंट एंड में कुछ शायद से उतना अपडेट किया नहीं है। एंड गिट पुश ओरिजिन मेन, देखिए तो एक्सटेंशन वाटर, ठीक है। कंटिन्यू। ठीक है, तो हमारा ये हो गया। अब यहाँ पे अब बैक एंड को कर लेते हैं, कंट्रोल सी कंट्रोल एल गेट ऐड, तभी हमारे लिए ऐड हो जाएगा जितना हमने किया। गेट कमिट -m एंड अपडेटेड कोड एंड गिट पुश ओरिजिन में। तो सारी चीज़ें यहाँ से ऐड हो गई हैं। अब हम इसे कट कर सकते हैं जब तक हम अपना ये प्रैक्टिस करते हैं। अगर यहाँ पे अपना ये देखें पूरा, तो यहाँ पे हम भी हम जो हमारा मतलब ये हमने ऐड किया वो सारा यहाँ पे आ जाएगा। एंड देखते हैं इस साल कितना हम कंसिस्टेंटली कर पाते हैं। ठीक है, लास्ट ईयर 292 कंट्रीब्यूशन, ये भी उसमें आ रहा होगा शायद से 2020, ये 290 कंट्रीब्यूशन एंड अभी तो सिर्फ 2 हुआ। ट्राई करेंगे इसे 1000 से ज़्यादा रखने का इस ईयर। ओके, तो चलिए देखते हैं।
Welcome to my ultimate Redux course. I'm Mahesh, and I'm going to be your instructor over the next few hours. In this course, you will learn everything you need to know to build real, complex applications with Redux. We're not going to work on a dummy to-do app. We're going to work on
चैट को हम थोड़ी देर शायद रख सकते हैं completely से।
Welcome to my ultimate Redux course. I'm Mahesh, and I'm going to be your instructor over the next few hours. In this course, you will learn on a real bug tracking application with a Node backend. We'll go over functional programming principles, writing clean code, designing complex stores, middleware, calling APIs, testing, and integrating with React. I'm assuming in this course you know nothing about Redux and want to learn everything from scratch. I'll explain every line of code I write so you learn and understand all the underlying principles. I promise you, by the end of this course, you will know and understand Redux inside out. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you that I have a coding school at codewithmosh.com where you can find plenty of courses on web and mobile development. So if you want to learn more from me, be sure to check out my coding school. Now, let's jump in and get started. So what is Redux all about? Well, Redux is a state management library for JavaScript applications. We can use it with React, Angular, Vue, or even vanilla JavaScript because Redux is just a state management library. It doesn't care what library we use to build user interfaces. But why do we need a state management library to start with? Well, if you have ever built an application with a complex UI, you have probably come across this situation where you need to keep different parts of the UI in sync. Let's say the user changes some data in one part of the UI, and other parts of the UI should be immediately updated to reflect the changes. In more complex scenarios, the data can also get updated as a result of network requests or background tasks. In these situations, data can flow from one part of the UI to another and change in unpredictable ways. We have to write a lot of code to keep everything in sync, and when something goes wrong, figuring out how the data changed and where it came from becomes really complex. We might even end up with an infinite loop that is hard to break. If you encountered such problems in your applications, that is a sign you need a state management library. Facebook encountered this problem in 2014 and came up with an architectural pattern called Flux. Redux is inspired by Flux, but it has grown more popular due to its simplicity and elegance. Another popular solution is MobX. With Redux, instead of scattering application state in various parts of the UI, we store all the application state inside a central repository. That is a single JavaScript object called the store. That is a single source of truth. You can think of it as some kind of a database for the front end. So with this architecture, the different pieces of the UI will no longer maintain their own state. Instead, they get what they need from the store. If we need to update the data, there is a single place we have to update. So this immediately solves the problem of synchronizing the data across different parts of the UI. But Redux's architecture also makes it easy to understand how the data changes in our applications. If something goes wrong, we can see exactly how the data changed, why, when, and where it came from. So in a nutshell, Redux centralizes our application state and makes data flow transparent and predictable. Now that you know what Redux is, let's look at some of its benefits in action. So this is a food delivery application I have built with React and Redux. On the left, we have food categories such as soups, salads, and so on. We can select a category and add items to our shopping cart. Note that as I'm adding these items, the number of items in the shopping cart gets updated immediately. So let's add a bunch of items. Let's also add an entree. Now let's go to our shopping cart. Once again, we can update the number of each item in the shopping cart. As I'm doing this, the total price for this item, for the cart, as well as the number of items in the shopping cart get updated in real time. So all the data in my application is in sync because we have a single store where we're storing our application state. Let me show you where it is. This is Redux DevTools, a powerful tool for debugging Redux applications. It's an extension to Chrome. So over here, you can see my entire application state tree in one place. So we have these entities, we have our shopping cart, we have our food categories and food items. This auth object over here represents the current user. So we have all the information about the current user and their authentication token. We also have this UI property, which includes some UI state. Now let me show you something powerful. On the left side, you can see all the actions that I have performed in this application. So you can see I've added a bunch of items to my shopping cart. Now, if I remove the first item, green lentil soup, you can see we have a new action here, item removed. If we select this action, we can see the data associated with this action. So over here, I tried to remove the product with ID 5. Now let me show you something very cool. I'm going to put this on the left side so you can see clearly. Let's jump to one of the previous actions. The UI got updated immediately. So we can go back to any of these previous actions and restore the UI in that state. This is called time travel debugging. We can also save the entire application state in a single file and reload the application from it later. How many times have you got a call from your client or your boss telling you that a feature in your application is not working? In these situations, we have to ask them, how did this happen? Tell me the exact steps that you followed. Then we have to repeat all those steps to reproduce the bug. Now, every time we change our code, our application gets reloaded and we have to follow those steps over and over. This is very time consuming. With Redux, we don't have to do this anymore. There's actually a tool called LogRocket that gives you an always-on Redux DevTools in production for every one of your users. So if a user encounters a problem, you can reload the application in the same state as the user and see what was going on. It's very powerful. Another benefit of Redux is that it allows you to cache or preserve page state. Let me show you what I mean. So over here, note that when I refresh the page, you're going to see a loading indicator for 3 seconds, indicating a slow connection. So look, refresh. Here's our loader. Now the menu appears, okay? Now, if you navigate away from this page and then come back to it, the menu is already there. We don't have to re-download it from the server because our entire application state is available on the client inside a single JavaScript object. Also, I can select a filter here, let's say soups, and sort the menu by price. Once again, if we navigate away and then come back, our menu is in its previous state. So let's quickly recap. Redux makes state changes predictable and transparent. We can easily see what exactly is going on and how the application state changes in response to every action. The second benefit of Redux is that it centralizes our application state, so all the data our application needs is stored in a single place that is accessible by all parts of the UI. With Redux, we can also easily debug our applications, we can easily cache or preserve page state, and implement undo or redo features. So if your application needs these features, you may want to consider Redux. The great thing about Redux is that it works with any libraries for building UIs. You can use it with React, Angular, Ember, Vue, even vanilla JavaScript. Plus, we have a large and growing ecosystem of add-ons. So these are all the great things about Redux, but all these great things come at a cost. Redux introduces some indirection and complexity in your code. This is partly because Redux is based on functional programming principles, and a lot of developers are not familiar with these concepts. But don't worry, I'm going to teach you the basics of functional programming very soon. Another problem with Redux is that Redux code tends to be verbose. You have to write some boilerplate code to get things done. This is one of the main complaints about Redux. So in this course, first I'm going to show you the traditional way of writing Redux code, which has a lot of boilerplate, but later on, I will show you the modern way of building Redux applications. You're going to learn how to write clean and concise Redux code free of boilerplate. So with all that, is Redux for you or not? We'll talk about that next. If you have seen any of my courses before, you've probably seen this guy. His name is John Smith. He's kind of arrogant and opinionated about everything. So he says that he uses Redux in every project, and so should you. Well, I tend to disagree. For every project or app, you need to understand what problem you're trying to solve, what your constraints are, and what solution optimally solves the problem according to those constraints. There is no such a thing as one-size-fits-all in software engineering. If you're on a tight budget, if you're building a small to medium-sized app with fairly simple UI and data flow, if the data doesn't change in your app, or if you simply fetch the data on every page load and render it statically on the page, Redux is probably not the right tool for you. It's just going to complicate things and slow you down without giving you much value. So don't use Redux or any other tools because they're popular or someone told you to. Always think about your needs and the kind of app you're building. Now, John argues that you should always use Redux right from the get-go because the state management problem will get messy sooner or later. So it's better to have the right foundation in the project. Well, that reminds me of the old proverb. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Developers like John are often used to a certain way of building apps. They solve every problem using the same solution. And honestly, I think that's just basic human nature. We don't want to constantly think and figure things out. We like to be on autopilot. But if you want to be a real software engineer, you need a different kind of attitude. You need to be an active problem solver. So the bottom line, Redux is great. It provides a number of benefits at the cost of extra complexity in your code base. You will see this as we go through this course. For every app, you need to think about all the pros and cons of Redux and see if it's really the right tool for you or not. In fact, Dan Abramov, the creator of Redux, once said, "You might not need Redux." This is a great blog post to read in your spare time. So, at the end of the day, I encourage you to watch this course to the end because it helps you see what Redux is all about and whether it's the right tool for your next project or not. Also, keep in mind that almost 60% of React projects are built with Redux. So if you're a React developer, chances are the next job or project you get is based on Redux. So you need to know how Redux code works and how to maintain it. And that's what you're going to learn in this course. If you look below this video, you're going to find the starter project for this course. So simply open this folder with VS Code or your favorite code editor. Now, all you have to do is to open up a terminal window, install the dependencies, and start the project using npm. So npm install. All right, all of our dependencies are installed. So now let's start the project with npm start. Now open up your browser and head over to localhost port 9000. You should see the hello world message. Now let me give you a quick overview of what you have in this project. So take a look at package.json. Here we have 3 development dependencies and they're all related to Webpack. In case you're not familiar with Webpack, it's actually a module bundler for JavaScript. So we can split our JavaScript code into multiple files and have Webpack combine them into a bundle. We also have Webpack development server, which is a very lightweight development web server. Now, over here, you can see the configuration for Webpack. This is pretty standard, nothing fancy here. So we're telling Webpack, that the entry point to our project is this file, index.js, that is located in the source folder. Now, Webpack is going to start from here. It's going to get all of our JavaScript files and then combine them into a file called app.js, which is going to reside in this folder, this, which is short for distributable. And here's the configuration for our development server. So we're telling Webpack to launch our application from this folder on port 9000. Pretty straightforward.
ओके, तो चलिए यहाँ पे इस फोल्डर को पहले इंस्टॉल कर लेते हैं एंड डाउनलोड द स्टार्टर प्रोजेक्ट. एडवांस. ओके ब्रो, व्हाट्स दिस? कुछ नहीं, मैं बस एक काम कर रहा था यहाँ पे, मतलब रिडक्स के बारे में हम थोड़ा सा देख रहे थे. वैसे तो मुझे आता है, बट यहाँ से शायद से परचेज़ करना पड़ेगा कुछ भी, तो देखते हैं. एंड हेलो ब्रो, डिस्कॉर्ड चेक करो, discord.com, open discord. And okay, happy new year bro. Okay, तो चलिए देखते हैं रिएक्ट रिडक्स के बारे में. या रिएक्ट रिडक्स के बारे में है, ठीक है. तो ओके, तो चलिए देखते हैं. वैसे तो मुझे पर्सनली लगता है, वैसे हम खुद से भी थोड़ा सा कर सकते हैं. खुद से करते हैं, वीडियो से थोड़ा मुझे लगता है कन्फ्यूजन ही होगा. ये ऐसा नहीं. तो पहले देख लेते हैं किस तरीके से मतलब ये यूज़ होगा, देन लास्ट में देखते हैं कहाँ पे यूज़ होगा एंड कहाँ पे नहीं, ठीक है. तो हमने एक फ़ोल्डर अलग से क्रिएट कर रखा है, उसी में यूज़ कर रहे होंगे. एंड व्हाट प्रॉब्लम डज रिडक्स एक्चुअली सॉल्व? रिएक्ट ऑलरेडी हैज़ यूज स्टेट राइट, सो आई रिडक्स, ठीक है. तो ये हमने पहले देख रहा था, जब हमारे स्टेट कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाती है एंड हार्ड टू ट्रैक, मतलब चीज़ें अगर बहुत से जगह सेम टाइम पे चेंजेस आने चाहिए तो उसके लिए हम रिडक्स का यूज़ कर सकते हैं। एंड पेनफुल टू डिबग, तो कुछ इस तरीके से हमारे लिए सॉल्व करोगे इस प्रॉब्लम को। स्टेट बिकम्स स्कैटर्ड एंड हार्ड टू ट्रैक एंड पेनफुल टू डिबग। एग्जाम्पल्स फ्रॉम योर मर, ठीक है। तो ऑथ यूजर, ठीक है, कार्ट, विश लिस्ट,